Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Happy Tuesday and welcome back to the Dynasty Heat Seekers Fantasy Football Show presented by RotoHeat.com. I'm your host, as always, Brad Menendez. Well, every Tuesday that I don't show up, I'm not your host, but today I'm here. And we are joined by RotoHeat royalty, the man, the myth, the Taylor Cornell. How are you tonight, my friend?
Dude, I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm better now because we're hanging out. We used to do this so much, and it just feels so good. So
when I think of our early Roto Heat pods, I think of like we might run 3 hours. Like we might go until midnight and just keep that train a running. So I have some very fond memories of just getting really acclimated to podcasting.
Yeah, I'm about to say what not to do.
Lots of reps.
And that is okay. We got you ready for the big time, and now you're a big deal, right? Like everybody knows you. Yeah, You've got multiple podcasts. You're Cincinnati royalty. So tell everybody in the world what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I've I don't know, maybe I've spread myself a little thin, but I have a solo podcast, as my good friend Sully can relate to the solo podcasting world. And I honestly got a little burnt out there for a little bit. So I've had some hiatuses, which that's cool, but that's the Dinosaurs. And then I started a new podcast sometime in the spring, I think, with one of my buddies, and it's called the Can't Be Serious Pod. And it really is not serious at all. It's just extremely tongue-in-cheek fantasy analysis, if you even want to call it that. We really just have a really good time. We're going to ramp that back up when the season starts. And then I started a Bengals podcast, non-fantasy related. So that's been fun, just to do something different outside of the fantasy realm. And I've had a couple guests that have been pretty cool to get some insight into the Bengals as a team and things like that. So that's been fun, but different.
That's awesome. Well, make sure for any of you that are watching, thank you for hanging out with us, but check that stuff out. Taylor is awesome. He does an amazing job, and we're excited to have him. Who else does an amazing job? But Mr. Sullivan, who's down there banging on the remote control. How are you, man?
My ring light's pissing me off. Other than that, I'm doing fantastic. I look like I'm Casper the Ghost right now. Talk amongst yourselves. No, it's good. It's good to be here. It's great to be here with Taylor. It's so nice to see your face and hear that silky suave dinosaur's voice at the same time.
Do you have like a noise filter on? Because I don't think that's my voice you're hearing.
No, man, it's
auto tune. That's auto tune you've got on.
It's lovely. It's better than this damn Amazon ring light that I'm dying with right now. But no, happy to be here.
Hey, you helped Bezos get to space, all right? So just quiet down, man.
I don't want to talk about that.
and Craig, as always, bringing the heat. Taylor looks so skeptical of you too.
Taylor's smart.
He should be.
He's a smart man.
As he should be, because tonight we are going to be talking breakout candidates.
Yeah,
potentially. These would be guys that probably haven't broken out yet, or a name I might throw out is a guy who probably will never break out, but hopefully he does. So it'll be a fun one tonight. Now, obviously, training camps are open across the league, so there is a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of information being thrown out there. So, Sully, what's going on in the news? What are we talking about?
Well, I guess we'll start with what everybody's been talking about the most all offseason, and it's Aaron Rodgers, who just sort of strolled into Lambeau today, into camp, was like, what's up? Like nothing happened. So I guess he's back. They're talking about they've restructured, or they're in the process of restructuring his deal. Sounds like there might be a void contract at the end of next year, or even at the end of the season after that. Haven't seen any details come from that. Taylor, is this Aaron Rodgers' last season in Green Bay?
I kind of don't see how it isn't. But I guess the caveat there should be assuming, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the name. Yeah, sure. If he gets fired or canned along the way, then sure, I would open up my mind to Aaron Rodgers there longer. But it kind of seems like if they were going to do that, they would have done that a while ago and nipped this thing in the bud. So I'm assuming they're riding with him, and I think this is probably it for Rodgers in Green Bay, at least. I don't know. it's too early for me to devote any energy to wondering if he's going to retire after the season or go somewhere else, because we have spent a lot of time trying to guess this offseason already.
Yes. Brad?
Yeah, as a Lions guy, I have no interest in giving Aaron Rodgers any time. It's ridiculous. He's taking too much of my offseason energy. He'll be in Green Bay, for as long as they keep him happy. You've heard the Randall Cobb trade rumors and all that stuff that's going on right now.
Insane.
So, Aaron Rodgers, at least from what we've seen from the outside, he's got the personality and the mentality that as long as you keep him happy, you'll keep him around. So if they make some changes and kind of concede to his wishes a little bit more, my guess is they can keep him around. And they really need to, because this team is kind of in their window for making a push. So they'd be smart to do it. What do you think?
I think this year they need to keep him around, but I don't think they have any plans on keeping him around after this season. And I don't think they did when they made that decision to draft Jordan Love. It just does not make sense that you would draft a guy in the first round. And I believe they traded up to make that pick as well, to sit on the kid for 3 years. It doesn't make any sense to me. So quick follow-up question. If Aaron Rodgers is done in Green Bay, what does this mean for Devonte Adams, who will be a free agent entering next offseason? Start with you, Brad.
I think Derek Carr already put the feelers out there so he can go over to the Raiders and make it even more unfantasy exciting. Devonte Adams could go anywhere. I mean, the way his game's predicated, it's not like he's going to fall off a cliff soon. Short of injury, he can still be very fantasy relevant and viable for 2, 3, 4 years, high-end wide receiver 1 type potential. Depending on the offense, I mean, if he goes somewhere where they're in a rebuild, I'd be a little more skeptical. I wouldn't be Taylor skeptical of us skeptical, but
Sure.
I would be skeptical there. But if he went to a place like Vegas or a team that's looking for a true wide receiver 1, I would still think he's fine. Taylor, what do you think about Adams long term?
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's there's a couple different ways you can look at it. From the dynasty perspective, I've been trying to move off Adams since the end of last season, just based on I wrote an article on it in the offseason, but not an age apex as far as production, because I think he can continue to be productive, and we've seen receivers be productive into 30, 31, 32 years old, but more of just from a value. If you're playing it like a stock market, he's never going to get higher than what he was. He's at 1, or now he's maybe at 3 or 4 in dynasty rankings or startup drafts. He's never going to get higher. I can't imagine that he goes anywhere else, even after this season, if he leaves Aaron Rodgers and performs at the same rate. So I've been trying to move just from a value standpoint. From a production standpoint, I kind of feel the same way, that we've seen the best of the best from Adams. I mean, he had like 18 touchdowns or something last year. Ridiculous. 1,300, almost 1,400 yards. And while I think he's extremely talented, he kind of has that skill set that you think would age well, like the technician, Keenan Allen type of skill set. He doesn't rely on burners or jump balls or anything like that. I think he's not going to fall off the cliff like some of these guys have, but I would be concerned. I think we've seen the best of Devonte Adams, and for those reasons, I'm trying to move off of him.
Don't you think it's just one of those scenarios where the Packers just tag him?
I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't really, unless they're planning on going almost like mid-rebuild. Do you think they would?
Because what do you do? What do you do if you're an organization that doesn't draft a wide receiver and you have a good wide receiver? Surely you're going to tag him to keep him around. And I don't know how to say this any differently, but they're kind of a dick of an organization, right? So it seems like that would be a move that they would make, tag him and then try to work out a deal. But I don't know. I think if Aaron Rodgers is gone, Adams is looking to follow him out the door. So we will see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, cap's going to play a big part of it. The wide receiver position, you don't typically – I don't know that they would want to invest a ton into the wide receiver position, even with tagging him, when you could easily go out and hit the market or draft a guy, and obviously they haven't done that recently in any situation. But that cap is just, I mean, you got to be careful with that. It's not going up very high next year, and it dipped quite a bit this year. So I'm just saying, Sully, it's tough.
I agree. We'll go from one wide receiver to another. I apologize, Craig. I know. Hey, it's been a rough week up here in Canada. Whew. Don't get me started. We'll go from one wide receiver to another. Michael Thomas. News came out this week that he's had a surgical procedure to address the ankle that he hurt way back in week 1 of last season. He's on the PUP now, which is not the biggest deal during training camp. You can kind of come off the PUP whenever you want, but it looks like he's going to miss into the season. There's been multiple different reports, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, upwards of half a season. So I guess the question is, what does the New Orleans Saints offense, an offense that's already in a state of flux, look like when you take Michael Thomas out of it, Taylor?
Gosh, I mean, we don't even know who their quarterback's going to be, which is just
Right.
so weird that at the end of July, we're all guessing. And I think Camp Winston and Camp Taysom have, they're pretty strong in their stances, but nobody really knows right now. We haven't got an inkling of an idea yet. So it's kind of hard to say. I think no matter what, Alvin Kamara stands to continue to be a productive piece, because when you look at it, he's by far their best offensive weapon left. And he has the flexibility to be used as a receiver. And so I think, honestly, my dark horse that I'm looking at is like a Latavius Murray. I wonder if Latavius Murray gets a little bit more run at the running back position while they use Kamara split out wide in the slot, wherever, kind of moving him around, using him as a pass catcher. So I think Kamara will be fine. Maybe Latavius Murray gets a bump. But other than that, who else are you excited about? I know a lot of people are in on Callaway, but I've seen nothing to lead me to believe that he's going to take this monster step.
Little Jordan Humphrey, just because his name's fun.
It is kind of fun to say, isn't it?
I mean, when you look at their roster, it's like Alvin Kamara could get 120, 130 plus targets and 150 rushing at time. I mean, he could have an astronomical fantasy season if teams don't figure out how to stop him, because he's now their number 1 wide receiver and number 1 running back. There's nobody. I mean, Traquan Smith is yet to show anything. He couldn't show it with Drew Brees. I doubt he's going to show it with the combo of Hill and Winston. I mean, that's a weird offense. I mean, Adam Troutman, I am a hard buy on at this point, because they're going to need to check down to wide receiver to Kamara and then the tight end. So it's either Vannett or Troutman.
I think it's really interesting, and I'm 100% with both of you, and I really do think Latavius Murray is an absolute massive value right now. I see New Orleans running more than they ever have in the recent memory, which leads me to think that if you're going to run the ball a lot, doesn't it make more sense to have Taysom Hill as your quarterback than Jameis Winston, which I don't really like very much. But I think even if Jameis Winston was to win the job, we would see a heck of a lot of Taysom Hill getting in there to mess things up anyway, especially in the red zone. I think Adam Troutman, and I got a podcast hopefully coming out sometime next week. I haven't done one in a while. And it's a hot takes podcast. And one of them is this: Adam Troutman is going to lead the New Orleans Saints in targets and receptions this season.
Spicy.
Who else is?
That is a Canadian forest fire right there. I mean,
that's not even funny right now, man. I got a ton of forest fires going on up here.
I know. We're seeing all that smog coming down from up there.
Yeah,
where we're at. So
yeah, Canadians call it smoke. You guys in your pollution, you guys call it smog, but that's cool. But
I was actually thinking the dragon from The Hobbit, but whatever.
Oh, that works too. My apologies.
All right, so over on Facebook, they want to know about Randall Cobb. So we mentioned just briefly, if this trade goes through, what do you guys think that does to Cobb's value, if anything? I mean, he now is paired up with his guy, but there's Alan Lazard, Amari Rodgers, ESB, MVS, Devin Funchess. What does that do to him, Taylor?
I mean, I think it resurrects some value because he was probably pretty much dead anyways. I have him on one dynasty team. That was a pretty deep benches, and I had him, and it was interesting because I think, as recently as last year, he had some games where he was PPR viable. I wouldn't say you felt comfortable putting him out there, but in a pinch you could. And so I know he's going to be 31 years old at some point during the season, I believe. But I mean, last year in Houston with Deshaun Watson, who is a good quarterback, and now he's going back to Aaron Rodgers, a good quarterback. He had a 4 for 95 game, an 8 for 95 game. I think you could see some of those peppered in with Aaron Rodgers, but you just have to, anticipate you're also going to get some of those potential stinkers as well. I kind of think he he's going to push Amari Rodgers back a little bit this year as far as playing time exposure. I mean, I know I just think if you believe the reports that Aaron Rodgers really was pushing for this trade, it's just interesting that he's like, hey, I want to get Randall Cobb here so he can sit on the bench next to me. I imagine he wants to play with him. And at this point, it seems like the organization is going to do whatever it takes to keep him happy. So I think we're going to see Cobb get more playing time than maybe we would expect from a 31-year-old receiver. And he'll be flex worthy if you have to, but you might have to hold your breath while you do it.
Yeah, I mean, well, and you look at the target share he had in Green Bay, 2012, 104, he had 127, 129 targets, 84 targets, 92 targets. I mean, you got to think that if Aaron brings him back, he's going to use them. Sully, what do you think about it?
Sure. Like Donald Driver's busy or Jordy Nelson's got nothing going on these days. Like, I get it. It's cute. You want to bring him back and sort of put the band back together. I think Randall Cobb will have a game or two here that's somewhat interesting. You can use him as a spot flex, but good luck figuring out what week that is to start him. So I want nothing to do with him.
Do you think it's just because of his age or his lack of ability to stay healthy lately that has been – I mean, he missed 6 games last year, but then even the year before, 2019, his only year in Dallas, 83 targets, 800 yards. I mean, I think we would take that from Randall Cobb this year.
Oh, sure.
Are we too low on him? Which sounds weird to say.
But we sort of saw him wash out before he even left Green Bay.
Well, right? His last year in Green Bay, he was hurt, though.
He did play half a season, 60 targets. So
what was his last full healthy season in Green Bay, Brett?
16 games would have been 2015, but he did play in 15 games in 2017.
Okay.
And he had 92 targets. And he only turned in, 66 catches, 653 and 4. Mm-hmm. So that's only averaging, 9 yards a catch. So,
well, in my opinion, let's call that his ceiling.
Yeah, he's definitely not someone you're excited about putting in your lineup.
Nope.
He's a depth piece if you need him.
Yeah. So one last quick news and notes item, and it's another bad news story. It's Cam Akers, unfortunately rupturing his Achilles, and he's going to be gone for the 2021 season, and hopefully that's it. Sean McVay has come out and said they are not adding a veteran back, and they're going to roll with
Taylor's boy.
Yeah,
I remember.
Don't tune in the preseason because he's not going to play. So they're going to protect him. They're going to do what they can with him.
That's right.
So I guess I have 2 questions. What do you do if you roster Cam Akers, and who is the Rams back to roster now that he's hurt? Brett.
Well, I never thought I would say Darrell Henderson, but
that's right, baby. But you're saying it, Brad.
And the funny thing is even last year in Cam Akers' rookie season, Henderson had plenty of value. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, they almost split the rushing attempts. I mean, it was pretty close to 50-50 share. And he'll get involved in all areas. Like, I know we've done a bunch of videos on the other running backs, but it's probably going to be the Henderson show. They may bring in a veteran. That's probably my expectation as a vet comes in just to help be a leader in there. But, I'm not a Henderson guy long-term, but this year, if I'm competing, I have no problem putting him in as my, RB2, thinking the kind of low-end RB. I have a roster where I have him and Joe Mixon, and I'm fine going into the season with that. Like, I feel good that I can compete still, because I've got Michael Carter behind it and a few other young guys. So I would go Henderson. I'm sure they'll bring in a veteran, though. I don't know that these young guys are really ready. Taylor, what do you think, other than the fact we know what you think?
I think it's Hinder season, baby. And I will say, let me say, it's unfortunate. It came at the expense of an injury to Cam Akers. It looked like to end the season last year, Akers was starting to supplant Henderson as the primary option there in the backfield. But I also know there was Henderson was dealing with some injuries and things like that. So I was really looking forward to the season to see how it played out with those two guys, because I thought it would be closer to a 50-50 split this year, potentially. But I'm really excited for Henderson. I loved him coming out of Memphis, and his rookie season was a little disappointing, and then it seemed like he immediately got replaced by Akers. And this is his maybe only chance to prove himself here, because if he fails in year 3, guys, just jump on the Hinder season jump on the Henderson hashtag while you can. It's going to be catching on by week, I would say 4, week 5, as Henderson takes off. And once the train gets going, I'm not sure we're going to be taking on any more bandwagon guys. So I'm excited. I think he's a piece I would pay a first for if I was a contender and needed some depth. Say I lost Akers, I would pay a first for him because, again, if you think of a market value thing too, it's probably likely that even if you don't love Henderson, you could probably flip him if he's productive or even flashes a little bit. And that's an offense we want a piece of, right? Like we want pieces of that offense, Stafford and McVay. And I know the passing game is a little sexier than maybe some believe Darrell Henderson is, but I'm all in on it, baby. I'm excited. I have 0 shares. I've tried everywhere to get shares and I can't get them.
Trying to think if I don't.
I only have 1 share and I've been actively trying to move it as soon as the news dropped, but people are wanting to buy, but they're not wanting to buy at a price I'm willing to sell because it is the team with Joe Mixon and it's ready to compete. So I'm like, I'll just sit on and see what happens. I mean, I've got young running backs I think are going to step in and be something, but at least I know Henderson's going to be the guy. And I did pull up the numbers. They were nearly even. Last year, Akers had 145 attempts. Henderson had 138. And actually, Henderson at 138 averaged almost the same amount of yards, 624 to 625, had 4.5 yards a carry. I mean, so, I think Henderson – I don't know that you can give him the workload of a 250 touch guy, but I think you could get him up around 190 to 200 touches and then get him a little bit in the passing game. And that's still viable kind of mid to low end RB2 numbers. So
I think it's interesting because I don't know. I think we've sort of overvalued Cam Akers based on 4 games last season.
That's right, baby.
I also think that we're overvaluing Henderson now.
That's incorrect.
But I also know that it doesn't matter who the Rams put in their backfield. They produce. Go all the way back to Todd Gurley. Obviously, was a top-end running back. C.J. Anderson showed up off the scrap heap for a couple of weeks and was like a top 10 running back. If you combine what Malcolm Brown and Henderson did together at the beginning of the season, they were a top 10 back, and then Akers took it over after that. So I think Henderson's absolutely the guy that you want to march into the season with. I don't know about Funk. I don't know about is it Xavier Jones? Like, who are these guys? Like, I know Funk was a 7th rounder. I still think they bring in like AP or Le'Veon or someone who gets cut in camp. But for now, Henderson's the guy to go with.
Funk was an interesting guy because, he was like one of the best running backs in Maryland. When he came out, like he was definitely a guy that if he wouldn't have been hurt so much, he could have been intriguing. But the dude's blown like 2 ACLs. He's had a couple of other injuries. I mean, I don't know that he could shoulder a workload. So that's why I think they bring a veteran in, just because the young guys are too unproven. And I don't think Henderson can shoulder, 3 down back duties. I think for a spell he could, but you don't want to blow him out before you make a playoff run, especially with it being a longer season. You got to be careful there. And I do love Island Guy 127. He's given some good stuff over here. Definitely isn't a fan of Henderson for sure.
That's too bad.
So speaking of LA, we'll keep it there. With Stafford now in LA, do we see an uptick for Higbee in targets and production? Sully.
Yeah, I think the Akers injury benefits him probably the most, to be totally honest. I think that Akers is going to be used a lot in the passing game and maybe even lined up in the slot a little bit. So I think Higbee takes a lift. I can see Higbee returning to top 8-ish tight end numbers like he did a couple of years back. Plus Stafford loves his tight ends, right?
He does. He's a fan. I'm laughing because our Island Guy, Higbee season, baby. So skip Henderson season. We got Higbee season. Higbee. I mean, we've talked about it plenty of times. You've given the number. It's like 9 or 10 fantasy points makes you a tight end one. I think Higbee could average, somewhere in the 8 to 10 fantasy points a week type range with Cam Akers' injury. So I definitely would agree. Higbee should be a guy you could target with Everett in Seattle and all the things that have gone on. It's a good buy, and you should be able to get a bit of value. Taylor, what do you think about Higbee?
Yeah, I will say I'm a little lukewarm on him, but like you were saying, it doesn't take much to be a fantasy low end tight end one. So sure. I would say even though Gerald Everett wasn't super involved, kind of for the tight end position there, you kind of want as much production as you can get. You don't want to be in a timeshare at the tight end position. And so with him being out of town, if that opens up even 15 more catches over an entire season for Higbee, that probably puts him at low end tight end one range from where he was last year. I mean, let's see, Everett actually was more involved than I thought. 41 catches, 400 yards last year. So not to say all that's going to Higbee, but even if just a fraction of that goes there, I think you've got low end tight end one status.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at the target share to tight ends, I mean, 122 targets last year to tight ends. So, even if he gets in the 70 to 90 range, I mean, that's tight end one value for sure.
Yep.
Especially because Stafford's going to give him the ball in much more. He's going to help, although their catch percentages were both over 66%. So I guess they both had a good catch rate. So,
I can't imagine
it'll probably get better.
I can't imagine Higbee's ADOT was very good with Goff, and that would probably be better with Stafford.
Right.
That's it for news and notes, my friend.
We do have one more question before we move over to our breakouts. Over from Facebook, is Sam Darnold a good stash for a spot play every now and then since he's no longer with the Jets? Mr. Sullivan, we'll start with you. What do you think about Sammy D and the Ghosts?
I think depending on the format, if you're playing in a super flex league, I think you could start him every week. We had three wide receivers on that team that were in the top 24 last year with Teddy Bridgewater. I don't see why Sam Darnold can't do better than Teddy did.
It's because Sam Darnold sucks.
Does he?
I am the biggest Sam Darnold hater in the world because as poorly as he performs, everybody always talks about how young he is, and I just don't care how young he is. Everyone's like, but he's only 25. He's younger than Joe Burrow. I was like, I don't care how young he is. I know the Gase shadow thing maybe is real. We saw it with Tannehill. But
every other player that's ever played for Adam Gase.
I will put almost any sort of bet you want on Sam Darnold having a productive season. Now, could you stream him in Superflex if you need to fill in? Sure. Obviously, quarterbacks are valuable in Superflex, but I want zero part of him that I have to rely on.
With all that Sam Darnold hate, as hard as it was for me to get him off of you in our 96er, how dare you? How dare you?
I honestly don't even remember.
We up until as soon as draft time came around, Taylor was trying to make some trades as we always are in this league.
I'm scared because I really don't remember where the story went.
And so me and him started talking trade, and I tried to get Sam Darnold off him, and it took like a week of the draft for me to get this guy off of him. And I don't even remember what the deal was now, but I just remember it being ridiculous, taking forever to get this trade done. With as much as you hate Darnold, you should have just gave him to me.
Hey, I can't show all my cards up front,
Well, I see that.
Maybe Brad, if you made better offers, you would have got the deal done a little quicker.
Brad, come on.
Listen.
I'll offer 2 firsts and I'll accept it immediately.
Nobody's offering 2 firsts for Sam Darnold. Let's get real. I know it's
traded
super
a first for Andy Dalton last year. God only knows.
No.
Everything's possible, man.
If somebody offers me 2 firsts for Sam Darnold, I'll jump all over it. I'll just say that. I'll put it out there for our league mates that are watching.
Thanks. I'll write
send me that offer, and I'll give them to you.
Let me find a pen so I can write that one down.
No, don't worry. Come trade deadline time, you'll give it up anyway because you're desperate.
Yeah, usually what I do come trade deadline time is solidify that championship roster. But last year, I will share this quick story. Taylor and I were blowing away the one league that we play in together, destined to meet in the final, and somehow we both lost in the semi. So still heartbroken over that.
Me too.
And Taylor gave me my only loss before that semifinal loss. So
yeah.
Pretty bad bitter taste there.
So there you go.
Anyway, you want to talk about what we came to talk about, or
let's talk about some breakouts and see if we can scare the masses.
Okay.
So we don't really have a clear definition of what a breakout is for tonight because when you look at the players that we're going to talk about, some of them have kind of arrived already, at least a little bit. But we definitely think these will be guys that you'll be able to get some quality snaps out of this year and get some good fantasy production. So our awesome, amazing guest gets to go first. Go ahead and throw out one of your guys that you want to talk about. And let's see who you think is going to break out.
Yeah, I think Dallas Goddard is poised to break out, and that is kind of under the assumption that Zach Ertz leaves, but I actually don't think that Zach Ertz remaining prevents him from breaking out. So He was a guy I did a Twitter thread on in early June, just kind of looked at, and I'm really bad at this. And I don't really enjoy this part of fantasy analysis, but like looking at coaching tendencies and things like that. And the new head coach that came in there heavily involved his tight ends in Indianapolis, and we'll see how much sway he has with the play calling. He's not technically the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator came from the Chargers. So we'll see how much of that plays over. But regardless, I think Goddard's extremely talented. I think he's in an offense that is going to lack a ton of target competition. I think Devonte Smith is poised for a huge year as a rookie. But outside of those guys, I'm not really scared of Jalen Reagor, or I don't even know if Travis Fulgham's still alive. If not, RIP. But I'm really excited about Dallas Goddard. And unfortunately, we only have a really small sample size of him with Hurts last year. But, regardless, I think he's going to be a prime target there for the Eagles this year.
Well, and you said it, so Colts love to involve tight ends. I know last year they were all there were some injuries, but they still had, I think, like 70 or 80 targets to the group of tight ends. And then, you said the Chargers, that we know they love to use tight ends. So, I think you're absolutely right that Goddard has the capability, and we know he has the capability. I mean, we've seen him do it. He's produced very well when given the opportunity. With Wentz, with Foles, with whoever the quarterback wind up being at that time. So I think you're absolutely right, Mr. Sullivan. What do you think about Dallas Goddard?
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago. Dallas Goddard was tight end 10, while Ertz was like tight end 3 or 4. So we definitely see that he has that upside. I don't think it matters if Zach Ertz is on that roster or not. I don't think he's playing a whole heck of a lot. So I agree 100%. I think Dallas Goddard solidifies himself as a legit tight end 1. I don't think it does him justice to say a tight end 1, because like we said, 9.26 points a week is a tight end 1. So I think he has the ability to get into that 6, 7, 8 range. I think there's about 8 guys I really like this year. He's definitely one of them. So I'd agree with that one.
I think I would take, even if I wanted to get super spicy with the take, that Goddard potentially could enter into that upper echelon where we talk about like Kittle, Kelsey, who am I missing? Kittle, Kelsey, Waller as the big 3, and then kind of like Pitts and maybe Andrews, Hawkinson kind of like lingering around there. I think Goddard could very easily enter that conversation as, jockeying for that maybe number 4 tight end position.
4 I could see as a ceiling. I don't think I'm letting him into the top 3 club quite yet, but
no.
Hey, I've been wrong lots.
Sully, the Pitt streak stays alive. I don't think it's been a show that we've not mentioned his name since March.
Well, I didn't put him on my list tonight because I know how upset you get. So,
we'll
just leave it at that.
He's becoming the Aaron Rodgers of tight ends. I'm already over talking about him, and he hasn't even played yet because you talk about him.
If you don't like talking about Kyle Pitts, you should take the rest of the year off, my friend, because we're going to be talking about him a lot.
You hope so.
Yeah.
All right. So who's your guy? Who's your breakout candidate?
Me? You want to go to me now?
I prefer not to, but I'm going to have to at some point.
I'll start off with my quarterback, and it's Denver Broncos quarterback Drew Lock. First and foremost, I think he wins that job. Second of all, this is a guy who played 5 games in his rookie season in a dysfunctional offense and did okay. He projected out to about 3,200 yards. I think it was 20-something touchdowns and about 10 interceptions. If you took his 5-game sample out against 16 games, he would have been quarterback 24, nothing crazy, averaged about 14.5 points a game. Then he gets to come back. He's got a new coach, new offensive coordinator, no offseason program, no preseason. And he gets hurt early on in week 2. Hey, Josh, how you doing, man? And then he misses a couple of games. Then he goes on the COVID list when that random practice squad guy played quarterback for a day. And then Locke played okay. Like I kind of looked it up. He played it at about a QB 17 from weeks 13 to 17. So long story short, entering this season with a decent amount of reps in training camp. I'd love it if he got them all, but he's not because he's got to push Teddy out the door. He has Pat Shurmur as his offensive coordinator. Pat Shurmur got the best out of Sam Bradford and Case Keenum. And everybody loves the weapons in Denver. We love Cortland Sutton. We love Jerry Judy. We love Noah Fant. We love what Javonte Williams might be. Melvin Gordon is still serviceable. And even KJ Hamler can help you out in a pinch. So I see nothing but greatness for Drew Lock in terms of greatness being like a startable super flex quarterback. I'm not saying he's a top 12 quarterback, but I see him in the top 20, top 15 when the season's done.
And to support you, the Denver
Well,
Broncos actually put out an article earlier today that Drew Lock is going to get the first snaps in the quarterback competition, but they both will probably start a preseason game. So really the biggest thing comes down to who gels with which quarterback. If Teddy does a good job at building a rapport, he could take the job, but Drew Lock's got the history. So we'll see what happens. Taylor, how do you feel about Drew Lock?
Yeah, I think Teddy and my net for that offense, but we'll see.
I don't want to make a loud farting noise on your podcast, so you can move along. Because that's how I feel about Drew Lock.
Nothing good to say?
I really don't have a whole lot to say.
Okay. Sam Darnold or Drew Lock?
For like 2021 alone?
Yeah, gun to your head. Barrel's cocked.
I think Sam Darnold because I would trust Matt Rule more there. I think they have pretty comparable weapons, but I'll trust Matt Rule more than whoever's calling plays there in Denver.
Pat Shurmur.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, terrible offense coordinator.
I would buy both of them.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they both were like back to back at the end of the season. Like I view them as like pretty comparable guys, but if I have to pick one, I think I'd go Darnold and then quit.
I think they're solid QB2 options this year. I think they're guys that you could have as your QB2, and it'll be okay for you.
Not to hijack the entire show, where do you see Cortland, Sutton, and Jerry Judy finishing? Are they both top 24 wide receivers?
I love Cortland Sutton. I love Judy too.
I think they both could be. I think they both could be very low end wide receiver twos, like
okay.
20 and 23 type of thing.
Noah Fant have a shot at being a top 12 tight end?
If you can get 500 yards, sure.
Okay.
I'm worried about turnovers with Drew Lock though as well. Like I think yardage wise, being able to support Judy and Sutton definitely possible. Fant will get involved. I think Lock's been a little bit sloppy if I recall correctly. So that would be a little bit of my concern from a fantasy perspective, I guess.
Him and Wentz threw the most last year.
Yeah.
And I think that improved wide receiver play and just experience and offseason reps help him there. But anyway,
because this is really, well, but this is really only Drew Lock's third season, and last year, he didn't get off season. It's all virtual. So
he was basically a rookie last year. He had played 5 games at the end of the season in a lost season with a coaching staff that disappeared when it was over.
Yeah, I like the skill set. I like the arm. His decision making is an issue. That really has to get extremely shored up because that's his biggest problem. He's got great weapons, but if he can't get his reads down better, I've watched a few breakdowns of him moving in his progressions from 1 to 2 to 3. Especially when it's 1 to 2 to 3, he has a lot of trouble bouncing back and forth, kind of thing. So that would be a concern for me. If he doesn't lock that up, then no pun intended. Then that'll be a problem for him. But I would still aim to buy these young quarterbacks as the backups. But
we don't care how old they are, Brad.
It doesn't matter to me how old they are either. If you can help me win fantasy games,
totally.
I'll look into buying you.
100%. Who's your first breakout, sir?
Well, my first one we've already talked about. It was Noah Fant. I think Noah Fant has the potential. So Cortland Sutton's coming back from injury. Jerry Judy is still developing in year 2. Fant is, going into that time where we should see tight ends start taking that next step. So, by and large, if you're looking for a cheaper option that may be a little under the radar because everybody loves the tight end class that just came in, or some of these more recent tight ends, Cole Kmet's been popping here a little bit in the conversations, try to buy a guy like Fant. Hope that he can get you back in tight end 1 production, which I think is fairly reasonable, and be okay with it. And the skill set's great. Fant, the player, Drew Lock may be hampering his value a little bit, but the player is extremely strong potential. Him and Hawkinson were the top 2 tight ends in their draft class, and there's a reason for that. Taylor, what do you think about Fant?
Fant would be probably my least favorite of the options within that passing game. But with the pretty low bar for tight ends, he's definitely a piece I'd be holding on to because I'm curious about the rumors around Denver's interest in other quarterbacks. So really all of those weapons are pretty intriguing to me, Fant included. Looks like Rodgers is off the table for this season, but Deshaun Watson or Rodgers next year, whoever it may be, that it looks like Elway may be trying to woo. In Dynasty, I'm definitely really interested in Fant, but I'm kind of lukewarm for him for 21.
Nobody's giving 3 firsts for a quarterback. I mean, Rodgers and Watson are just too expensive. I mean, 3 firsts is insanely high, even though they're very good. I mean, Stafford's a guy that people were going crazy for, and they only got 2 firsts and a starting quarterback for him, right? Like,
yeah, like if I think I'm going to win the Super Bowl, I'll give you 3 first-rounders. But when I'm living in a division with Kansas City and the Chargers, I'm not banking on winning my division, let alone going to the big show. So I don't think you can move that stuff to do that.
I do love the chat going on here about the conversation about Manning's interceptions through his first 2 years and Manning and Locke now being compared to each other. So hot take. I guess Locke's the new Manning. Is that what I'm?
You gotta love it when the boss comes in and solidifies your takes. Hey, it's pretty good.
All right. So with 20 minutes left, let's get through the rest of these guys. So who's your next guy, Taylor?
Oh, I'll be quick with this one. Mine's DeAndre Swift, and the only reason I really would pick him, even though he seems really obvious, is it seems like some are fading him a little bit, concerned about the fact that the Lions. I'm so sorry, but the Lions probably won't be a really good team. I'm so sorry. I don't mean it. I do mean it, and I actually think DeAndre Swift is almost a lock for an RB1 season, and to me, like, to get that out of a second-year running back, to me would be a breakout. So for dynasty purposes, I'm kind of interested as whether a buying window has opened up for Swift. Today I was kind of researching some other stuff for an article. Since 2016, 15 of the 16 running backs that have had at least 60 receptions and 100 rush attempts finished as a fantasy RB1 in PPR scoring. So the lone exception was washed up 27-year-old Le'Veon Bell with the Jets. I don't think DeAndre Swift falls into that. And I think 60 receptions and 100 rushing attempts is fairly likely for him. So I'm all in on him as an RB1 this year. So I think, rocket ship to the moon, whatever they say.
I don't know what that means, but yes, it's, Bezos it up, baby. I definitely think Swift has got that ability. So, and the way that this offense is built right now, Swift and Jamal Williams both should be fantasy relevant. They're going to need to lean on the running game, and they're going to need to check down to the running backs in this passing game. Swift is another guy that I could see being one of the top, pass catchers on the team. I mean, anything's possible when your top wide receiver is Pharrell Williams.
I hate to throw some shade on this one, but I do like DeAndre Swift a lot, and I think he's a very talented young running back, but I don't think he's nearly a top 12 back this season because I don't think that offense is even nearly good enough to get him there when you consider how much they're going to lean on their tight end and how much the other running back is going to be involved. You mentioned that you don't see Henderson getting 250 touches. I don't see Swift getting the workload to get there either. So is he a high-end RB2 and a guy in Dynasty that I absolutely want to have? You bet. Is he breaking out this year into the top 12? I don't see it.
Oh, Sully.
Sorry, man.
Disappointment everywhere. All right, Sullivan. Who's your next breakout player?
I'll leave the two that you don't like to the end. If we run out of time, they're not there. But I'm going to go Gerald Everett, tight end in Seattle. Not the spiciest and sexiest name in tight ends out there, but I think what everybody fails to understand is that Gerald Everett was actually the Rams tight end of choice before Tyler Higbee fell into that role. So 2019, Tyler Higbee went bonkers, I think, the last 5 weeks of the season and parlayed that into, I believe it was a tight end 8 finish. Halfway through that season, Gerald Everett was a tight end 10, and then he got hurt. So Higbee was there by circumstance. Good for him. He made the most of his opportunities. Last year, Taylor mentioned it earlier that Everett was more relevant than he thought he would be. Now he goes to Seattle. Massive quarterback upgrade with Russell Wilson. His tight ends coach from the Rams just happened to go to Seattle to be their new offensive coordinator. Gerald Everett's a top 12 tight end, and I know I keep saying that's not a big deal, but he is a top 12 tight end. Like, he's back end 10, 11, 12, with Russell Wilson averaging about 6 to 10 touchdowns through the tight end position each season, and there's no one else there. So
you don't think Disley makes this another Rams situation?
No, because Will Dissly doesn't have the skill set that Gerald Everett has. Gerald Everett is an incredibly athletically gifted tight end. Will Dissly's broken.
Higbee, I'm about to say Higbee didn't either, though, right?
Higbee didn't what?
Have the same type of skill set that Everett has. I mean, Everett's more athletic than all of the other guys.
If you back out those 5 games that Tyler Higbee had at the back end of 2019 and put those 2 guys head to head, nobody in their right mind will want a piece of Tyler Higbee.
I like it. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I like Gerald Everett. I think he's got potential. I mean, with Olsen and
his value. Well,
yeah.
Free.
Well, and with Hollister and Greg Olsen leaving, that's like 70, 80 targets that could potentially go his way or look in his direction. So, Taylor, what do you think about Everett?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Sorry,
Everett was actually.
I don't mean to poo-poo on the Lions. Sorry, Taylor, but the
good.
Lions poo-poo on themselves. It's not me.
No, we bite kneecaps.
Yeah, good luck.
So
with that,
the people that we're biting are poo-pooing themselves.
This is going in a weird direction. Yeah, I like Everett. I wanted the Bengals to sign Everett. He was one of my targets for them in free agency. I really thought he's got, like Sully said, he's got the athletic profile and has produced when given the opportunity. So I'm excited with him. I guess my only concern being what type of volume will he get there, just from a typically lower pass volume offense. We'll see if that changes this year. But if there is volume there to be had, I'm pretty excited about Everett, and we'll see if he can. I don't know how many times we'll talk about low end tight end 1, but I think if he can get to low end tight end 1, I wouldn't be too shocked about it.
Yeah,
that'd be a breakout for sure.
I think so. He hasn't been there before.
Right.
Brad doesn't like my definition of breakout. So you're up, Bradley.
Well, this one's not really – I don't even know if it's a breakout candidate. I just love that he finally left Chicago. Anthony Miller, wide receiver, Houston Texans. I don't necessarily think he's a breakout candidate. I think his ceiling's probably like wide receiver 3, but he's a guy that changing teams, I think I was a big fan of him at Chicago, and Chicago poorly underused him and kind of destroyed his value. But if Deshaun Watson's the guy and Randall Cobb goes – it's Brandon Cooks and then Anthony Miller. I mean, those are kind of your top 2 options in the passing game, potentially. Nico Collins as a rookie. Rookies can pop, but I think Anthony Miller's got the skill set and the ability to be could potentially be a high-end wide receiver 3 type guy, and teams need that. You need a wide receiver 3. So I'm not saying he's going to break out in Sully terms, but I think he's definitely got potential to return way more value than he has so far in his career. Mr. Sullivan?
I agree 1,000% with you, Brad. How about that?
I hate you.
I cannot count the number of times that I watched Chicago quarterbacks miss a wide open Anthony Miller. And if he had viable quarterback play and they hit him on half of the times he was wide open, he'd have been a top 24 wide receiver. So there is a little bit of talk, and Rick was mentioning it to us before, that maybe he developed a little bit of an attitude problem. And I don't necessarily blame him. I think he was totally misused in Chicago. I don't know. I think the kid's got talent. He looked like
Rick's talking about you on the stream.
Is he talking about me?
Oh, I thought that was you.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Look at him coming in here trying to stir the pot.
I think Anthony Miller can be a wide receiver 3. I don't think Deshaun Watson plays it down for Houston, and I don't think he has to for Miller to be a wide receiver 3, because I think the sheer volume with a team that's going to be losing from the start to the end of every game is going to be throwing a lot.
Do you think, I mean, I know the bar is low for Anthony Miller to outproduce what he's been doing. Do you think it matters at all who his quarterback is, whether it's Tyrod Taylor, Davis Mills, Deshaun Watson? Either way, you're pretty comfortable that he'll be productive or more productive than he's been?
Well, absolutely. So. Tyrod Taylor's a good quarterback. He's just had bad breaks. I mean,
he got a punctured lung.
He got stabbed by the team. I think where Anthony Miller likely – I figure he's out of the slot for Houston, and maybe they line him out wide and they put Nico Collins in the slot because he's a rookie. But Tyrod or whatever I'm supposed to call him, he seems to do best in that middle section of the field, but he can go deep too. So I think Miller has probably his best season, which I'm not sure that's saying much, but I think he has the opportunity to for sure.
for the price tag, it's worth the investment.
100%. I got enough shares that I'd love to see that happen.
All right, so let's go with your last one, Taylor. Hats forward. I know you're hot and heavy, ready for the season. Your offensive line's strutting its stuff, ready to rock. Who's your next guy up?
Yeah, and I'll keep this one short too. We're pressed on time, so luckily I don't have to back it up with much. I put Jamar Chase, and everyone's like, Jamar Chase isn't undervalued right now. He's already valued pretty highly. My hot, spicy-ish take that I've had from the draft is that Jamar Chase a year from now will be valued as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver. I think we've seen CeeDee Lamb jump up in value from a very good season, but he didn't put up a Justin Jefferson type season even. I think the targets are going to be there in that offense. I think Jamar Chase quickly becomes the number 1 option in the offense. I've got him pegged for anywhere between 130 and 140 targets. So I think he's going to be very productive, and as such, his value is going to skyrocket as well in Dynasty. So I'm going to say he's breaking out as a rookie, a la Justin Jefferson, even if the stats aren't quite what Jefferson's were.
So you're our insider with the Bengals.
Yes, I am.
What is T. Higgins do to Chase's value? I mean, is the rapport began to get there? Do you feel like Higgins is still going to be having that same connection because now him and Burrow are the most recent duo and Chase is now 2 years removed from that? Like, what is, I mean, is that have any effect on it?
No, I actually think both of them have pretty decent standalone value in themselves. So, I think Chase will come in, be the number 1. And I think rapport is one of the things that we talk about as a kind of cliche thing that we can't really prove chemistry, rapport type of thing. We think it's important. But in this case, legitimate college teammates, Chase also brings to the Bengals, one of the things that was Burrow's one of his only weaknesses as a rookie was his deep ball accuracy. He was terrible. You can only imagine if he would have hit on some of those. So I wonder if instead of targeting AJ Green down the sideline, if he's targeting Jamar Chase plus Jamar Chase's yards after catch ability that AJ Green lacks, whether we'll see that improve kind of that one glaring issue. And I think T. Higgins is going to continue to produce as well. I think he's a perennial 1,000-yard receiver too. So I'm pretty much all in on both of those guys, Boyd being a fine floor play as well, low ceiling.
Ooh, and everybody agrees with you. The chat's all on board. All this hype about Cincinnati, you got to be careful, man. They're going to run away with the North this year, all this talk.
They got a pretty good running back there too that people are sleeping on a little bit too, I think. So
I'm not. I love Joe Mixon.
It's a very interesting offense, and I do agree that it's like peanut butter and jam, these two. We obviously have seen what they did at LSU. Quarterback wanted wide receiver wanted quarterback. I'm on record as saying the Bengals shouldn't have drafted him, but they did. I do believe that he is going to be their number 1 wide receiver. I do believe that he's going to have a pretty solid season. And I do agree with Taylor that the number 1 thing is Burrow's got to be more accurate down the field. And AJ Green is AJ Green. But Jamar Chase isn't catching balls that land 5 yards out of bounds either. So accuracy is going to play a big, big part in it. And I think that both him and Higgins have the ability to really help each other. Tyler Boyd, unfortunately, I think is going to fall a little bit by the wayside. But Jamar Chase is the top wide receiver in this class by a mile, in my opinion. And I don't see any reason why he doesn't have a nice season in Cincinnati, provided that Swiss cheese offensive line can keep their quarterback on his feet.
I'm glad that they took Chase and let me get Panay. All right.
And so you should be.
I mean, that's, don't get me wrong. I love Chase. I mean, he's probably the best wide receiver in any of the last 2 draft classes or 3 draft classes. I mean,
I think you can
Chase,
go back further than that.
You probably could. I mean, Chase is elite, but you need that tackle. You need that guy. And
Brad, let's just say we're all winners. Okay. Let's just say we're all winners from draft night.
We are.
Okay. Thank you. Sully, I don't know. I don't know if you're a winner or not. Did you win on draft night?
We trade back every day.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, you got some offensive linemen, which you needed. So
our offensive line got better, which is not hard to do. That's like being a top 12 tight end.
It got better by getting rid of Riley Reef. Where did he go?
Oh, right.
Major upgrade in Cincinnati, which tells you everything you need to know.
Is Jonah Williams gonna carry his lunch pail? Is that what's gonna happen?
Brad, you know what? I'm glad you bring that up. I would love for you to listen to the latest episode of the Who Dey Den dropped this morning. I had a in-depth offensive line analysis on the Cincinnati Bengals. We talked Jonah Williams. We talked Riley Reef. Check
Billy
it out.
Price. Did you get some Billy Price?
We actually did talk a little Billy Price.
Look at that.
Yeah, anything you want, it's all there. If you want to be a Bengals offensive line expert,
I don't dabble much in the offensive line experts, but I do like offensive line conversations. So,
well, there you
go. As we should. If you want to compliment your comment, we'll get on the stream.
That's right.
So yeah, I absolutely agree. Jamar Chase is a guy that could break out. I mean, from day one. Can he stay healthy? Can they keep the quarterback upright? I mean, those are all big questions that time will tell. But this team's going in the right direction. We talked about it either last night or the Monday before when we were talking about just kind of our training camp preview. I think Cincinnati's defense is being underrated. I like the defensive line significantly. The linebackers are young and they put a lot of early draft capital. So it's a fun team to watch. And I'm rooting for them because Detroit's not ready to compete probably for another 2 years. So
2.
Wow. They might get to the playoffs before Minnesota. So let's just relax.
Dude, man, you are drunk. Are you kidding me?
I'm drinking that Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid, baby. It's training camp season.
You're nuts, man.
I'm dripping. And
you want my last one real quick or no?
Yeah, go ahead. Shoot some more. Right. We got 3 more we could throw out. So
okay, I'm going to go real fast, even though you don't think he's a breakout. It's CeeDee Lamb. Played at wide receiver 11 in the 5 games with Dak Prescott last year. And then the trio of, I think it was Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, and Garrett Gilbert, I believe was the third one. He was like wide receiver 31. So Amari Cooper's banged up. CeeDee's lining up all over the field in training camp. He's getting all wide receiver 1 reps. He's probably the 1A to Cooper being the 1 there anyway. I think by season's end, he's the top wide receiver in Dallas. And I think if Amari misses any time, CeeDee Lamb's looking at a top 5 wide receiver fantasy season this year.
Love some CeeDee Lamb. I'm a fan. Mm-hmm. I'm a fan. But unfortunately, you can't get CeeDee Lamb. Like if you had to have drafted him, you're not trading for him right now. I've not seen any trades go down involving him, which is unfortunate because I would love to get some CeeDee Lamb shares.
Yeah, it's been very hard to come by. He was my 101 for most of last offseason, and then I switched post-draft, but I love the guy. The leagues that I had him in were Empire leagues that ended, unfortunately. So I've been scrambling to get some shares back, and it is, it's hard. It's like pulling teeth. So I agree. Tough guy to buy for sure.
Yeah. And did you bring up CEH yet? He was your other breakout.
No, he's my other guy, and I won't go too much into him. And I think CEH had a good season last year. It wasn't his fault that the fantasy community went batshit crazy and made him like a top 5 running back before he even got on the field. I think he finished at RB21 and he was injured, missed 1 game. He dressed and didn't play. Fantasy managers love that in week 13, and then 15, 16, and 17. Or he got injured in week 15 against New Orleans and missed the rest of the season. So prior to his dressing and not playing, he was a top 12 running back. So he was there last year. He had a tough time in the red zone. Kansas City did a wicked job this offseason, speaking of offensive lines, of upgrading their offensive line, trade with Baltimore, a couple of signings and things like that. So luring old Bears out of retirement. They're going to be a much improved run game as well. And I see him punching in those red zone rushes when he didn't last year. So I think he's got top 12 in his range of outcomes for sure.
Love it. All right. So I know what the answer is going to be from Taylor, but I'm going to throw it to him. Are you taking Lamb over Chase?
I can't. Sorry, Josh. Sorry.
Mr. Sullivan, are you taking Lamb over Chase?
I am. And in 2 years from now, I'll hate myself for it, but I don't care. I'm doing it anyway.
Okay. What can you tell me why? Talent-wise, you like Lamb over Chase? Situation-wise?
Upside, better offense, targets. Who's CeeDee Lamb competing with for targets?
Blake Jarwin. Just kidding. Dalton Schultz. Come on, dude.
Sure.
Have you not kept up with the training camp videos? Man.
Well, let me put it to you this way. If I'm talking NFL talent, I want Jamar Chase. If I'm talking fantasy football talent, I want CeeDee Lamb.
Interesting.
It's tough. I think they're both wide receiver 1s, but I think Chase is the elite wide receiver 1 for a long-term period. So I would go Chase as well. But You're pulling. I mean, what is it? You're pulling
Splitting hairs.
Splitting hairs. Thank you. Splitting hairs. I mean, they're both wide receiver ones. So let's not too. Whichever one you get, you're going to be happy with them in the end. So, all right, people. It's 10:30. All that fun we had is now officially over. Taylor, as always, it's amazing having you. It was
Appreciate it.
Wonderful, reunited, and it felt so good. Before we go, tell everybody where they can find you, what you're doing, and make sure you tell them all the podcasts you do so they can subscribe.
Yes. Okay, at Twitter or on Twitter. At Twitter. Go to at Twitter.
He owns Twitter now.
I am at Twitter. You can apply for verification through me. No, on Twitter, @_Taylor Cornell. All the stuff's in my bio. I created one of those fancy little link tree things so I can try to keep all my stuff in one spot. There's a link there in my bio. So it's got the links to my podcasts and links to articles and things like that. So I don't want to bore you with every. Who Dey Den is the name of the Bengals one. Just dropped that another episode today. That's a lot of fun. That's the one that gets updated, the most recent. So I'll plug that one.
Don't forget the best solo podcast out there, and that's the Dinosaurs podcast. Huge fan.
No, I'm a Sully fan. You're my go-to when I'm mowing grass, my man.
That's it.
All
right.
I don't know what that means, but I'll take it. Thanks, man.
He's taking it, and we're taking off for the night. So we love you guys. We thank you for hanging out with us. Don't forget, as the season rolls in, we will start having more and more streams. We've got DFS stuff that'll be dropping. We've got redraft stuff that'll be dropping. Monday's IDP, Tuesday's Dynasty, and you guys have a great week. We love you. Bye.
Also, right there, playlist. Hit it. Watch the videos. Do it.